Hi there, I'm Jon Kirkman. I'm a broadcaster and journalist based in the UK, and I'm just going through some things here and have been for the last few months that you may be interested in, you may have missed because you've been in lockdown, not been able to get out, or not being able to keep up with things. Or I think you really should pay attention to these things and maybe direct yourselves to availing yourself of the music or the actual books concerned. Talking about the Strawbs today. I got a couple of Strawbs albums that have just been reissued and a Dave Cousins solo album. Dave Cousins, of course, the long-time leader and founder member of the Strawbs. First up, this one, Burning for You. It came out in 1977. Pretty wonderful album, I thought, at the time. One of my favourite Strawbs tracks is on here called Heartbreaker. It's a Dave Lambert song. They almost had a hit single though with a song called Back in the Old Routine. It got played a lot on the radio at the time, and I actually thought it was going to be a big hit. They actually made it onto Top of the Pops, which was the big TV show at the time. If you got on Top of the Pops, you usually got a hit single. They did have a minor hit single with it, but not as big a hit as they would have liked. I guess a lot of people probably thought it was in a similar vein to the earlier Strawbs hit Part of the Union, which is kind of, but not quite. But it's quite an amazing single in the sense that even at the height of punk, the Strawbs were able to have a hit single and get themselves on Top of the Pops. But it's a good single, I have to say. It's certainly entertaining, and it's not my favourite Strawbs track by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a good track. Now, my favourite Strawbs track is, again, it's a Dave Lambert song. It's called Heartbreaker. Dave Cousins said it would have sounded better if Dave had used another guitar on it, but I mean, we're all down to sort of looking back on things in hindsight from like 40 years difference. So maybe that's a fair comment to make, but I actually still love the track. So that's out, and again, it's also out with basically bonus tracks, and you get, of course, in the booklet, you get the full story and the lyrics, of course, of the. There's a nice sort of magnified version of the cover. Strange cover. It looks very like an Isha piece of work there. And I have to say that the bonus tracks are very good on here as well. So again, these releases that Esoteric and Cherry Red have been doing, they've done a fabulous job with both the packaging and, of course, the remastering. Now, this album here, as we just heard, that the album Burning for You came out in 77. This was going to be an album that came out in 1978. It was recorded, but didn't come out until 1995. Why is that? Well, basically, management problems. The band had major management problems, and they just said, no, we don't want to do it anymore. I want to split the band up. And Dave Cousins said, hang on, it's not your band to split up. But he, at the same time this album was ready, I think he probably had enough, and he got an offer to work in independent radio in the UK, and he went into that. That was the Strawbs lineup at the time of that particular album. Although I might say, although Dave Lambert is pictured there, it was Joe Partridge who played a lot of the guitar on this particular album. Joe Partridge previously, most recently at that time, had been in Steve Harley and Cockney Rebel. Before that, of course, he was the guitarist in the Kiki D band. If I'm really honest, this album is probably one of the best albums of the Strawbs' career, and Dave Cousins thought so as well. And it was a little frustrating when it was recording the album, knowing that it wasn't going to come out. They'd recorded the album, it just wasn't going to come out. They'd finished it virtually, and then they were in the final stages of mixing and were told, no, it's not going to come out. So it's kind of shelved. And when it was reissued in 95, they had to use the only audio source that they had available. However, a few years later, somebody found the master of the album in a skip. Can you believe that? Because it was recorded at Strawberry Studios South. Now, in those days, probably these days too, in the very few studios you can find, when record companies book a studio, until you pay the bill, the studios keep the tapes. That's just the way it is, and I can understand why. You have the tapes when you pay the bill. And obviously the bill wasn't paid because the album never came out. The management didn't want to pay the bill, and so Strawberry Studios kept the tapes. Now, when the studios were finished and ended, they were all cleared out, and of course a lot of the tapes were thrown out. And I personally think that's cultural vandalism. I think that people who recorded the tapes, because they're all very much marked that you know who it is in lots of cases. I think they should be contacted and asked if they want to purchase the tapes or at least have them back. Anyway, through a fluke, Dave got the master tape of Heartbreak Hill back. And this is taken from that master, and it sounds absolutely great. So it's a big upgrade on the original version that came out, because they had to use the only version that they had then, which was not, it was good enough to release, but not perfect. This is a lot better. Again, it's great to have it out. Dave Lambert is actually on the first track, Something for Nothing. But as I said, Joe Partridge plays guitar on most of the rest of the tracks. Some great bonus tracks there too. And if you're a Strawbs fan, this really is a must-have album. Even Dave Cousins thinks it's one of the best albums they ever did. And I had a chat with Dave, and it's great that it's out now. And there's some plans next year, hopefully, for some other reissues from the Strawbs. I'm going to leave it there and leave that on the table, as it were. More news about that as and when we have more details. Now, here's another great record. Dave Cousins made an album in 1972 called 2 Weeks Last Summer. It came out between Great New World and Bursting at the Seams. That was his debut solo album. He left it a long time, 2007. This is The Boy in the Sailor Suit. Why was it that long? Well, of course, he had worked with the Strawbs. The Strawbs weren't in existence for a while. But also he made albums with people like Brian Willoughby, who was in the Strawbs at one point, and also Rick Wakeman, who had also previously been in the Strawbs. This is a beautiful album, The Boy in the Sailor Suit. Some great songs, and also some extra tracks there as well. Now, this was recorded very quickly. I think it was recorded in just over a week. I think it's the Ecology Room, which was the studio owned by a great producer, sadly no longer with us, Chris Tsangarides. And it was a very easy album to do, according to Dave. They did some gigs, but there was hardly anybody there because they weren't particularly well advertised. But it's a really nice addition to the actual Dave Cousins canon, as it were. Beautifully recorded, fabulously mixed, some wonderful songs on there. And it's one of Dave's favourites. The cover's beautiful as well, if you look at that. And again, I did an interview with Dave. We're a little bit behind on the SoundCloud page for all these interviews, but we are getting there slowly. And as soon as they're up there, if you keep subscribing to my video channel, we'll put on when all the actual audio interviews and the music features are actually up on the SoundCloud page. But there you go. There's some really nice albums, Strawbs and Strawbs related, back in the shops now. Well worth investigating in. And musically really on the money and right on mark. So if you like the Strawbs, you'll really love these albums. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy listening to the Strawbs and Dave Cousins.